challenges are going to be with the falling young population, getting people to do the work, partnering with the right technologies. We've been unsuccessful in a few, but we've got to realise that technology is going to be the way that our really good high-paid people are going to be fit to manage more and more cows.
I'm joined again this week by Fermanagh man Rodney Elliott, who is farming in the US state of South Dakota. In the second of a two-part interview series, Rodney discusses recruiting and managing staff, herd breeding objectives, animal performance and herd nutrition, while also offering some insight into what he learned along the way and why he's so passionate today as he was 20 years ago about dairy farming. I started by asking Rodney how many staff they manage across the business.
So at Drumgoon, it's 55 people. Up at County Line, I think it's 37. I don't get involved in the day-to-day management down in Kansas, but that's 280.
So there's a significant number, obviously, staff to run the enterprise. We'll talk about managing them in a minute, but how do you go about recruiting that number of staff? And I suppose the one question a lot of people want to know too is, what impact has maybe any political changes had on hiring staff?
So, it's always a cocktail. It's always a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of local help, a little bit of hired in people and so on and so forth. But right now we're recruiting through a visa program called TN2. It's a professional visa out of Mexico. And those people come through. We have 2 recruiters in Mexico finding us people, getting them through the consulates, through the embassies, getting them their visas to come to work is expensive and it's a struggle. We've been using that program for 10, 12, 15 years. We're definitely using it more heavily now than we have done because of Trump's policies. We've lost quite a few people because of audits, which has been a real struggle this year. The people knocking on the door, which had been a really good system for us for 10 years, they've stopped coming. Right? There's no more people coming across the border, so there's no more people coming knocking on the door looking for work. We would have had 3 years ago, we would have had 10 people a day calling and looking for work, that we didn't have. So some J1 visas, that's a student visa coming from anywhere in the world, can be a year-long visa. We have some Chinese people coming. We have an English vet student with us for 6 months. We have obviously had probably some of your listeners have been out on student visas and worked for us. Those kind of people. Again, a little bit more difficult to do this under this administration. And then, of course, we have some US citizens. They may be of Hispanic heritage, but they're second generation, born in the US citizens. They are quite a good part of our labour force, definitely down in Kansas, huge part of our labour force. County Line, a huge part of our labour force. Drumgoon, maybe not so much because we haven't had 2 generations of family yet come through our system, And so it's a constant. My wife does the human resources, and if we can get a week, we don't have to hire or fire. Or not that we ever fire people, but I think 2 weeks ago we lost 4 people. And we even brought up at $2,500 a TN2 visa guy, nice guy, seemed to be a good enough worker. As soon as it got 20 below, he was gone. He just couldn't cope with the cold. I didn't grow up with it and didn't want it.
Winters in South Dakota are different than they are, I suppose, in Mexico.
Yeah. So we're going to see some of that go on. The flip of that is we will pick up some people who are working construction and then get laid off, and they come in and help us through the winter time.
Yeah. Do you have, okay, you mentioned, if we even look at Drumgoon and there's somewhere in the mid-50s in terms of staff, you obviously then you've structured roles, responsibilities. How do you work that to make sure the farm runs efficiently? And I suppose, do you put staff with particular strengths in particular areas? And
So it breaks down into the half of those staff are milkers, just that the milking, and we milk 12-hour shifts. Um, I don't like this, but it is factory work. You just
Mm.
repeat, repeat, repeat. I expect somebody that's in a milking parlour to attach 1,000 cows a day, on their shift. That's uh, and then we have feeding teams, people that can run tractor and run equipment and stuff like that. There, those guys just do nothing else. If the cows all run away, they're supposed to keep just putting feed in front of them. Then on the herd health team, there's probably 8 or 9 people treating cows, moving cows, calving cows, treating calves, that sort of stuff. And then there's a few management people in there, guys that operations managers, keeping equipment running, mechanics, stuff like that. So it all breaks down. One thing that is very important to us is that people need rest. You know, so
So what does the working week look like,
a
Rodney?
lot of the guys are on 4 on 2 off.
Okay.
So they work 4 days, 4 12-hour shifts, then they have 2 days off. So I like that because you've always got 30 your labour force is on a day off.
Mm.
Which means that if you need somebody, you can offer that up, and you'll usually always have somebody who comes in and wants to take a half shift or a full shift or whatever to help you out. And also, we've seen productivity. You have to have people that get some rest. You know, um, and then some of the other guys work a 5 on 2 off. You know, just they've got 2 days off every week, but we like the people to have their days off. And Yeah, very loyal. The people are very loyal. We don't have to worry about will the night crew come in, will they not come in. We use WhatsApp to manage all that. We use Google Translate to get all that sorted out. And yeah, you've always got a weak link or something there, but the people are very, if some guy's sick, he'd post that I'm not fit to work. Can somebody take my shift? And usually they sort that out themselves.
And I was going to mention that in terms of communication, because you have a lot of different backgrounds, you have a lot of different nationalities. I'm sure there's language barriers there in some cases as well. So that whole kind of leadership, staff development, and even daily communication, how does that work? Who's in charge?
Yeah, and Andy, Andrew, our manager, takes a lot of responsibility in that. My wife Dorothy does the human resources, takes that responsibility. It's something that I struggle with, because 2 reasons: I don't enjoy it, and the other one is I'm probably way too soft. So I must have people that are more strict and more professional in their attitude to that than me. And I know that. I know that I'm not really good at it. So uh, I really want my people to be happy, and I do everything to do the best for them. But sometimes if you're going to be everybody's friend, you're not going to be a good manager.
Mm. And then the rotas piece, like, is it your farm manager does that? Is your
Yeah,
wife does that? And I suppose, how do you keep that balanced and keep that fair? Because I'm sure that's an important thing among that number of staff.
there's a whole WhatsApp page for schedules, and it goes out all the time. Of course, it's a constant moving target with people coming and going. But it by and large, everybody knows how to find where they're working and when, and it works. It works pretty good. Yeah.
Mm. And
Every
from a labour cost point of view, has that changed much over time, Rodney? Because I suppose here we think of obviously cheaper labour than what maybe it is here, but
I
not
very much,
maybe as
I
cheap
very
as
much,
people think, is it?
I very much doubt if it's cheaper. I think our lowest wage on the farm to now is $15 an
Mm.
hour. You know, the guys get decent hours. They'll get 55, 60 hours a week. So
Mhm.
earning, I think, reasonable good money. We subsidize their housing. They live on the site. I think the housing's costing them $1 an hour or whatever, for the working hour. Uh, and So yeah, but they're well worth it. And we've people at higher wages than even that. And of course, the people we're paying the highest wages to are the best value on the farm, the people that manage themselves, that know what we're doing and stuff like that. So, the perception that it's cheap labor, it's not.
Mhm. Mm.
We're,
And they
we're, we're good.
Do you see people, Rodney, you hire and you kind of develop them through, I suppose. A lot of those people in those higher paid jobs have obviously come through from right from the bottom through the system, like, and that's what you want, I'm sure.
That's what Andy likes. He likes the guys that start in the milking parlour, that understand the concept of a clean, healthy milking cow, and respect the work that others do in there, and then move out of that system. They've been our most successful managers.
Talk to me about breeding strategies. You mentioned earlier, you mentioned firstly crossbred herds, which maybe some people wouldn't envisage in an enclosed all year round calving system. Secondly, I suppose some of the KPIs which we'll come to and the importance of them, but principles, I suppose, that guide your breeding decisions on farm. You mentioned them there, preg rate. One we use a lot here is obviously calving interval. Um, Maybe the perception here, Rodney, is that we obviously run a lot of block calving systems, and fertility is very, very important. But maybe there's a perception there that fertility is not as important in all year round calving systems. But you're after telling us on part one of this interview that it's very important to have fresh cows in the system.
It's very important to us, and obviously uteruses to produce these high-priced dairy bull calves or these beef cross calves are very important. So we actually don't do a lot on the breeding. It's all subcontracted out to Alta Genetics, right? We work with Alta Genetics, so there's 3 full-time technicians on the 2 farms, you know. So there's always a technician on duty on each farm every day and one guy covering for days off and so on and so forth. That has been great. When we were breeding ourselves back, I think we've been using Alta since 2015. When we were breeding ourselves, we had 5, 6 people breeding. And, when everybody's doing a job, it's very easy to say, well, if everybody's doing it, I don't have to do it. Somebody else can do it. Now we have a company who monitoring everything, I think, almost daily, what's going on the farm. They supply the collars, they supply the technicians, they supply the semen, they supply all the equipment that goes with that, the calcium bolus that goes into the cows, everything like that there comes through a one package. It's a cost per cow per month, and we love that. They'll sit down when proofs come out every few months, and they'll sit down with Andrew, maybe myself. I'm really not that interested in it, and we'll work towards a common goal. Our common goal is that we want cows with good legs and feet, cows that we can run. We run these cows without antibiotics. We don't treat cows. Cows that stay on the herd for a long time, good fertility, high component milk, those sort of things, and using 100% AI and with good genomics that are coming through the system. You can see month to month the heifer program is getting better and better and better, and the cows are getting better and better and better. It's scary how much better cows have got in the last 3, 4 years, and how much better they're going to get.
Where is your preg rate? Where is what I suppose people would know here in terms of the likes of your calving interval? Where are those replacement rate? Where are those stats at?
So calving rate, a calving interval is at 372 days, 373 days. It's a really good calving. Calving interval is a horrible way to monitor, in my opinion, and I know your listeners will not like it. It's a horrible way to monitor fertility because it only measures the pregnant cows, right? It's actually what we call preg rate is of 100 cows eligible for breeding in a 21-day window. What percentage of those 100 cows ended up pregnant, And our preg rate's 33, 34, 35 constantly. If it falls below 30, there's an alarm bell and everybody has to come and sort this out, That's a really, really high rate. We have won awards for the Dairy Reproduction Cattle Council. We've won awards for our repro. We get cows pregnant. Being a few crossbred cows in the system does help with that.
You mentioned, you mentioned a few things there. You mentioned what you want in a cow. You want good legs, you want good udders, you want cows that last a long time. Again, maybe it's naive, but we think of indoor systems and we think that, we're pushing hard in terms of maybe milk volume, and we're giving up some of those traits. So how are you selecting the bulls to deliver those things? And you also mentioned genomics, that obviously is playing a part in accelerating the genetic gain within the herd.
Yeah. So we don't do any genomics on the female side. It's all using genomics on the male side. I think we're probably missing the boat there a little bit, and we didn't do genomics on the female side. We tried, but with crossbred cows, you couldn't get any accurate data, because there was no accurate data for the crossbred side. We're shifting much more towards a Holstein cow now. Our young stock is nearly all predominantly Holstein. So we'll see a much more Holstein. And County Line is almost 100% Holstein, So um, uh, the proofs come out. We have criteria on bulls. We go for health traits, for milk quality, for other confirmation, stuff like that. Typically, we print us out 10 bulls that are in our price bracket, in our bucket. And Andy will select 6 of those, and they'll rotate those 6 bulls through the system for 6 months or whatever time it is, and keep bringing that in, monitoring each bull. If this bull is a little lower for fertility than another bull, he's out again right away. So, if you ask me what any cow on the herd's bred by, I have no idea.
Yeah. You said to me before, I think when we were out there, like, I think is it 55% of the weighting is towards health and survivability traits, and was it 45% is actually towards milk and component type traits.
We put no value on what we'd call type, show cows, because all cows are pretty good, So.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit in terms of the beef side of things, because you mentioned it earlier in the interview. Obviously, smiling in terms of every bunch of Angus calves that you see going out the gate, they're worth a lot of money. And we've seen a big increase in the value of calves back home here, but not to the same extent that you're seeing in the US. So just you'll be the envy of all our dairy farmer listeners. But how much are you getting paid, Rodney, for your beef calves?
So we sell them in 2-month blocks for both our dairies. And now the December-January calves are 1,300. That's down from 1,400 for the October-November calves, right? The beef market has slid a little bit. It has actually strengthened again. So we're very happy at that. These are calves that are 2 to 3 days of age that leave the farm with just an EID in their ear, and they're gone. And there's no questions asked about a small calf, male and female, all the same price. Obviously, the calf has to be healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the genetics then, is there work being done on that side, or is there a requirement even to receive that $1,300 that they have to be, I suppose, of a certain genetic merit in terms of a certain quality?
There are companies out there that will actually give you free semen because they want their own genetics in that beef calf cross. The problem with that is they tend not to have really good calving data on those, days of calving. So we're quite happy Alta Genetics supply that semen that's part of their package. The calves are decent, they're good, they're healthy. Our death on arrival and everything is low. So we're more than happy just to keep going that. It's nearly all Angus. We're all Angus. There's a couple other farms are using a little bit of Charlie on Jersey cows with great success, a little bit of Simang, a little bit of Limang, a little bit of Gelbit, whatever goes on. But ours end up, going to the feedlots. The raised by raisers go to the feedlots and get finished out at 17, 18 months. So.
And it's all AI Angus that you are using?
Haven't AI. We haven't had bulls on the farm for over 10 years.
Okay. One thing that you mentioned there, which will might come as a surprise to listeners, is 48 hours, 72 hours old moving calves. So it's a big saving on on labour, on resources, on accommodation, on a lot of things, Rodney. And like, where does the mortality rates come in there with regards to that? Because very different than the requirements we have here.
Yeah, we just went through this in Monday's meeting. Typically, our death on arrival, which we call death on arrival, is any calf that dies on the farm. So actually could be a calf that dies at the day old. He was wrongly tubed or whatever, you know. Uh, so death on arrival typically runs about 2 to 3% on the farm, right? Uh, Actually, twins historically run about 4%. So we actually end up as many calves as we have cows to sell, right? Or a little more. So uh, uh, we find that moving the calves at 2-3 days old works really, really well. If we were moving our calves to Kansas at 626 miles, they go pick up another farm on the way. So it's 750 miles of a trip down there. It's 13, 14 hours in a truck. You know, the trucks are all very clean, they're very well bedded, very well ventilated, but they're still on that truck for 14 hours. The calf at 2-3 days of age will lay down and sleep the whole journey. I've hauled many loads of them myself when we used to haul down in pickups and trailers. The calves are no problem. If the calf was a week, 10 days old, he spends all night standing up worrying about things, you know? So the younger they move, the much, much better, you know? Uh, we've all the data to prove that. So like on arrival, we probably see, as long as we always put healthy calves on, if the guy's chance to stick a calf to put it on, they'll have a problem with it when it arrives. But if we still put on healthy calves on there, we can have 1 in 500 dead on arrival on the truck when it gets there. It's that low. It's not even worth talking.
The price of the beef calf, and you alluded to it, what impact is it having on heifer availability? It's at an all-time low, and I suppose, how long have people realised that? And is there a little bit of a change back to ensuring that there's enough heifers in the system?
Absolutely. It took time to work the heifer supply that was there out of the way, so it was easy to buy heifers for a while. We did that for sure. You know, we were buying heifers for two beef calves. There was no reason why you would breed. Now it's actually, you know, it's not unusual to give $4,000 for a pregnant heifer. So now people are shifting back again to breeding a better supply of heifers. Will we go too far that way? I don't think so. I think people, especially now with milk price being low, people are going to want cash again. They're probably going to shift back towards the beef calf again. So,
to get those heifers, is it sex semen? Is it conventional dairy semen?
It's all sex semen and beef. It has been for years. We'll see a 2 to 3% better conception rate on our beef side than on our sex semen side. About 2%.
Okay. Animal performance point of view, I suppose, where is it at? We haven't actually touched on it. So, and you mentioned high components. So, where is the animal performance at?
So, annual production, so number of cows by the milk sold divided out there, 11,200 litres of milk sold per cow per year. Milk quality with 3 different barns. I would say it averages 4.8% butterfat annually, and probably our butterfats, our proteins measured a little bit, 3.65 protein, so very high components.
You're obviously paid on them components. You get bonuses with the contract that you have with those regard.
We get bonuses on volume. We get bonuses on fat to protein ratio. We get bonuses, obviously, on milk fat to ratio. All our milk goes to cheese. Literally 20% of our milk price is in the form of top-ups.
Talk to me a little bit about the diet. You mentioned some of the ingredients that's in it, but what does the typical milking cow diet look like?
So it's very strong on corn silage. But I don't have the rations in front of me. Each cow, 10 ounces, different ration, but very strong on corn silage, feeding 9 kilos of alfalfa haylage high protein alfalfa haylage, soybean meals, soybean extracts, uh, feeding whey and molasses back to cows, some distillers' byproducts, obviously ground corn, uh, but it would be probably not untypical to have cows eating 32, 34 pounds of corn silage, so 14 kilos, 15 kilos of corn silage in there. Yep.
Where is the ratio at? Because I suppose when we look, obviously we're very focused on pasture and forage utilised in grazing type systems, but I suppose you've spoke about the importance of quality corn silage. Where's the ratio there between, we'll say, forages versus concentrates?
Yeah, we like to get rations into cows that are 60% forage.
And is that a KPI within that, Rodney, that you're looking at in terms of, I suppose, trying to keep them diet costs under control? And where that balance or that tipping point kind of.
It's cost control for sure, but there's actually times it would be more advantageous to feed cheap grains, to cows, but it's also for cow health, rumen health, you know. We find if the cows get too heavy on the grain side, we tend to have some acidosis problems, so some issues like that. So yeah, our nutrition on the farm every 2 weeks, and they're monitoring things every week for sure. We're monitoring, manure quality and diarrhea and digestive upsets in cows and stuff. And it's typically when we change over to different silages or whatever, we can run into some issues. And I always believe that a cow is a little bit like a car. She's a lot easier driven at 75 miles an hour than she is at 95 miles an hour. So we kind of ease off the throttle a little bit. Yeah.
And that was nearly my next question, in terms of you don't change that, you don't play around with that good, very high milk price. Do you turn the dial a bit when milk price isn't as good? Do you turn the dial back a bit, or do you kind of try and keep that that's fairly consistent and constant as possible?
I guess we're always at 75, 80 miles an hour anyway. So up it a little bit is always a temptation. But no, I try not to. And again, likewise, we're not going to tap the brakes now just because milk prices are lower. We will try to maximize the forages. So we talked to our nutritionists. We've been meeting today with our nutritionist up at County Line, and for strategy going forward. And we've lots and lots of forages on the farms, and we want to maximize that. If we lose a pound of milk or 2 pounds of milk because we're feeding more of something that's already bought and paid for, well, that's going to be a strategy to get through this lower milk price.
Yeah, that's a good point. The final bit on maybe the nutrition of feeding is the crop and type arrangements. I think you said earlier maybe 30% of your forages come from owned land, but the rest of it is bought in. How does that work? Or
it works very well. It's taken years to build these relationships, and we probably work with 6 other crop farmers on Drumgoon, probably 6 or 7 on County Line, that don't by any means sell 100% of their production to us, but sell quite a percentage of it. They want to grow the crop that we pay best for. So everything goes across the weigh scale. Everything has got sampled. Everything's checked out. They get to set the price on some of that because they can play the markets. So we will buy the corn from them and give them a formula, and they pick the day that they want to sell it. A lot of people, try to think they can outsmart the market and pick a day that's most advantageous for them. So we give them that option on the alfalfa haylage. These guys, it's a 4-year rotational crop, a 5-year rotational crop in some cases. They have to commit to that. They'll plant that land to it, and we'll take care of all the management of the fertilizer needs, the spray needs, the harvesting, all that. We manage all that for them. So it's been about building good relationships and trust, and people obviously have to get paid, and we have to be competitive with the rest of the market, or nobody's going to sell us anything. So
it's about building that. It's about building that trust in the system, and they're a vital cog in the wheel. maybe just to finish and a bit of a reflection and future outlook. First question I have for you, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you started, these are often the hardest questions, Rodney, what would it be?
Well, obviously, I touched a little bit on the farm truck thing. If we had any idea that we were going to end up milking 6,000 to 7,000 cows on the Drumgoon site, we'd have built the whole facility different. We end up now, it's 3 milking centres on the same site, sharing the same management, the same feed supply, stuff like that. It works, but is it as efficient as what we've done at County Line, where we have all the cows on one big carousel milking? No. From a labour point of view, from a repair point of view, or whatever. So that would be one bit of advice, but that was never going to happen. James, get your head wrapped around, as is some of your listeners too, get your head wrapped around going from 140 cows to 1,400 cows. Is huge. We're actually close to 14,000 cows now, so it's kind of it's a different ball game all the time. So hindsight's virtue, but we didn't do that. Obviously, looking back when we came out here and you could buy land at less than £1,000 per acre, maybe we should have invested some more money in land rather than in concrete. But we've been successful with concrete, so I guess now we have to buy the land at £10,000 an acre, and that's another story. Probably a little bit of, we have let some members of staff go because over the years, good people, because we didn't believe that we could afford to pay them a little bit more to keep them. And in hindsight, we probably should have.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice, and advice every listener can take on board. Where maybe do you see the challenges? And maybe that land one is one of them, but where's the challenges? Where's the challenges in the future of dairy farming?
Challenges are going to be with a falling young population, getting people to do the work going forward, partnering with the right technologies. We've been unsuccessful in a few, but we've got to realize that technology is going to be the way that our really good high-paid people are going to be fit to manage more and more cows. And the biggest challenge on all farms is going to be transition to the next generation. What does that look?
And the final one I'm going to ask you is, what keeps you passionate about dairy farming? That has come through in this prolonged interview. I think I told you 20 or 25 minutes, Rodney, and we're a lot longer than that. But I suppose what keeps that drive and passion there?
What keeps that drive and passion for me is last week, Andy said, "Have you got time?" I had no time. He says, "I've got some of these nice pregnant heifers that we're housing for County Line to bring up to County Line." And I said, "Sure, I haven't got time, but let's do it." I threw them in my pickup and trailer. Off I went. And when I opened the tailgate to see the quality of cattle that are coming through the system and the potential that they have, and then to walk up and watch 100 cows going around a carousel, everything just running smooth. It was minus 15 or something there, and it was slipping and sliding. But that's what keeps me, just to see good cows, and to see some of our members of staff that have developed into super managers to take care of these things. So, yeah.
Very good, Rodney. Thanks very much for your time. I'm sure our listeners will have enjoyed the 2 parts of the interview. So, thanks again.
Thank you, James.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast. My thanks to Rodney Elliott of Drumgoon Dairies for joining me over the past 2 weeks in what has been a fascinating insight into his journey from Fermanagh to South Dakota, and from 120 cows to nearly 14,000 cows. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information, go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm James Dunne, and join us next time for your Dairy Edge.